Hello, Paulo Leite here, record collector. Today, I am in Lisbon, Portugal, and I'm going to be exploring Jazz Messengers. Not the jazz band, but the record shop. Let's go inside. In order to get there, you go through this bookshop and take the stairs. Jazz Messengers is located upstairs, separate from the bookshop below. As you will see, this is quite a unique record shop managed by people who are passionate about music in general and jazz in particular. Believe me, there's a lot to see here. Starting with the shop itself, that is visually quite arresting. This entire space used to be an old mill that closed decades ago and was converted into shops, bars and restaurants. And the machinery is still inside. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I am passionate about music just like you, and there's more great content coming. The jazz vinyl collection is organized according to record labels, genres, and alphabetical order. Here are some of the labels you will find here: Supper Club, Jazz Images, Acoustic Sounds, Craft Recordings, Tone Poet, Pure Pleasure, Blue Note, Clean Feed, Sam Records, ECM Records, Mad About Records, just to name a few. The genres are very straightforward. Beyond jazz, there are blues, soul, jazz, funk, groove, jazz vocal, original soundtracks and library music, free jazz and avant-garde, and Japanese jazz. There is also a budget series, Afro and world music, Brazilian music, French music, Fado and Portuguese contemporary. There is a lot more, but that will be on part 2. Now, as I jump into the collection, I will be showing you some of the great box sets and special editions they have. Starting with this UHQR edition of John Coltrane's beautiful ballads from 1961. If you cannot afford this box, which I know it's quite pricey, don't worry, you can buy the limited edition colored vinyl. You're welcome. But if money is not an object, they also have the UHQR edition of Coltrane's A Love Supreme from 1965. When it comes to vinyl, it's hard to beat the quality of these UHQR editions. Charles Mingus Takes Manhattan, the complete Birdland dates. These recordings have circulated as bootlegs for years. Now they have been properly mastered and officially released on 4 discs. Now, this box is something truly special. Bruno Nicolai was the brilliant maestro behind dozens and dozens of Italian movies. There are no film music composers like the Italians. This box contains 2 very apropos yellow LPs and 4 CDs with 4 soundtracks, including one of my favorites, Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, from 1972. This Bill Evans Trio box contains 4 classic LPs with the trio. This Ben Webster and Johnny Hodges album is amazing, a 1961 recording that I think was released in 2011. Empathy from 1962. This album contains the first Bill Evans recording I ever heard. The song in question is the very last one, I Believe in You. Actually, I did not listen to this album. Back in 1987, the first CDs released by Verve Records included a series called Compact Jazz that can still be found today used. I don't think they make them anymore. That song was the first one on that CD. I was 13 years old and felt my entire musical world expanding. Only years later, I finally got the full album. Undercurrent by Bill Evans and Jim Hall is one of my favorite jazz albums. Here you can find all the vinyl versions currently available. Colored vinyl with 2 bonus tracks, colored vinyl limited edition, audiophile virgin vinyl. It's insane, and they are all here. This Buddy DeFranco and Oscar Peterson album is an absolute gem. I am a huge fan of both, and over the years, I bought everything I could find from them. These are 1954 recordings that were released in 1955. They contain some of the most beautiful, lush arrangements of George Gershwin ever recorded. These recordings were unavailable for years until 1997, when Verve Records released them on CD as part of a collection titled Verve Elite that came in some gorgeous digipacks. They have been re-released in recent years on vinyl and CD, but the 1997 version to me is the most collectible and luxurious. Nevertheless, here is the vinyl version and it's a great buy. A second album exists where they play more songs by Gershwin and Cole Porter. Here it is, it's also beautiful. Black, Brown and Beige by Duke Ellington and Mahalia Jackson, 1958. A stunning album. This edition contains 3 bonus tracks with alternate takes. Errol Gardner, Concert by the Sea. This one never gets old. Here's Herbie Hancock's first studio album from 1962, still one of his best. Jackie Gleason, I Am a Huge Fan, Champagne, Candlelight and Kisses from 1963. This is one of his most luxurious arrangements. People tend to dismiss easy listening, and it's easy to understand why. But Jackie Gleason is on a league on his own. He had the best orchestra with the best musicians, and these recordings are beautiful. It's great to find this one here. Chet Baker Sings. This box set contains both the LP and the CD versions. Chet Baker and Strings, 1954. This is a great album. From time to time, most jazz artists would record a strings album. This was almost an obligatory stop in every career. I love them, and this album is one of the best. Get this album, you thank me later. Ornette Coleman's Round Trip. This Pharoah Sanders box contains 2 LPs. This Sun Ra box contains 3 LPs with his 1980 concert in Rome. For decades, these recordings have been unavailable. Now, here they are with a new master and full glory. It's great to see so many reissues of lesser-known singers like Ann Phillips, Dakota Stanton, Debbie Moore, Annie Ross, Beverly Kinney, Jane Fielding, and other names that never got the same recognizability of Ella Fitzgerald or Sarah Vaughan, and 50 years later remain quite forgotten. However, they all have very distinctive styles and deserve to be rediscovered. I have many of those albums on CD, and they still manage to surprise me every time I revisit them. Let's talk blues for a minute. Moaning in the Moonlight is Howlin' Wolf's first compilation released in 1959 with recordings dating back to 1951. This edition contains the vinyl version and a CD with tons of extra material. Burglar by Freddie King and Guests from 1974 is amazing. Big Chuck Berry fan here. There is a hilarious video here on YouTube with Chuck Berry and John Lennon playing together. Chuck Berry's face as Yoko Ono screams at the microphone says it all. I love Martin Denny. This is his first studio album from 1957. His Exotica series was amazing, birds and all. I'm such a big fan. This acoustic sound series represents the best in vinyl without breaking the bank. Guitar Forms by Kenny Burrell, 1965. This album has a gorgeous version of Moon and Sand with a small orchestra. Abbey Lincoln, Abbey is Blue, 1960. Beautiful album. Un témoin dans la ville. Beautiful 1959 film with Lino Ventura. Gorgeous soundtrack. These 10-inch records are sweet to look at. This Keith Jarrett box from the famous Luminescence series contains 3 LPs with 2 concerts that took place in 1973. Aphrodisia by Lonnie Smith, 1975. This is the full album with 5 tracks. Beautiful album. Brian Auger's Oblivion Express. I'm such a big fan. Art Ensemble of Chicago. No album I know from them resembles any of the others. They are fascinating and I always go back and ask, what? But that's the idea. I like this Bob Mazurek and the Exploding Star Orchestra album from 2020. While it's not an easy album to listen to me it's highly cinematic, evoking scenes and locations that linger in my head. I am always curious about albums like this one. Japanese jazz is a complete continent. I know very little about it. I know a few artists and records, and it is great to find a record shop that carries these albums. George Benson's Giblet Gravy from 1968. What a lovely album. I think Benson is one of those musicians that could never make a bad album even if he tried. Jazz in the Space Age from 1960 by George Russell and his orchestra. I love this album. Let's look at the section dedicated to new releases. This Sol Makossa by Lafayette Afro Band from 1974 is great. This Keyboard and Strings by Albert Allen Owen from 1979 is among the most beautiful, hypnotic things I've ever heard. A lot of jazz today wants to sound like this, but can't. The sales section has great albums too, where you can find stuff like this at a reduced price. Now let's look at the soundtrack section. Alain Goraguer is the composer behind La Planète Sauvage. He never disappoints. I love Carmen Cavallaro. This album is great, even though it's a film soundtrack. His version of Aquarela do Brasil by Ari Barroso is beautiful. Still my favorite version of that song. Oh, the Misfits soundtrack by Alex North. Beautiful. Another gem by Alex North. Bill Evans has the most beautiful version of the Spartacus Love theme in his album Conversations with Myself, and this song is the second track on that compact jazz CD I had when I was a kid. The Party has this beautiful soundtrack by Henry Mancini with a beautiful song titled Nothing to Lose, sung by Claudine Longet. Gorgeous. Charles Mingus soundtrack for Shadows. Wow. Jazz Messengers has a great collection of Portuguese music, starting with this recent release titled Pendular by Mazarin, a great album that, sadly, is not available on CD. Why, my friends? The shop also has a great selection of José Afonso, one of the most celebrated Portuguese composers. It's great to find so many of his albums here. The Brazilian music section is larger and contains an incredible number of awesome records. Here's a great one by Arthur Verocai from 2010. To me, Verocai is a musician and an arranger as great as anything you've ever heard. His output, however, has been very small, which is sad. Azimuth is a jazz fusion band I have always loved. This album from 2016 is a gem. You have to be Brazilian to sound this good. Elisete Cardoso, Canção do Amor Demais from 1958 is, to me, the most important female vocal album in Brazilian music. It's perfect. Oh, and if you ask me what is the most important male vocal album in Brazilian music, here it is, Os Afro Sambas by Baden Powell and Vinícius de Moraes. Get these albums, you thank me later. No other shop I've been to in Europe has a selection of Brazilian music this good. Secos e Molhados, it's Brazilian prog rock at its best. And Jazz Messengers has still a lot to offer. On part 2, I will explore its jazz CD collection and its pop, rock and soul vinyl collection. See you there. And don't forget, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. There's a lot more great content coming.